Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Salaam alaikum and welcome to another episode of Muslims Uncensored with myself, Robert Carter, and also my colleague and boss, Roshan Saleh. Welcome back, Roshan. It's been basically a break from us, a short break, not because we celebrate the festive season or anything like that, but because basically we have been working elsewhere whilst the news has been a little bit quiet. But of course, we have still been active, so it hasn't really been a break.
I had the Christmas tree up. I had a Christmas tree up, I had the Christmas cards, I had like New Year's fireworks.
Went over to Wales and celebrated over a Christmas turkey or whatever, but no, absolutely
I didn't
not.
do any of that.
No, absolutely not. We don't do that here at Five Pillars, but we have been working, of course, behind the scenes and keeping our coverage going, particularly of the horrific crimes that are continuing to inflict the Palestinian people. But Roshan, let's talk a little bit about what's been happening over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, Five Pillars has still been going on. It has been a busy period. I'm basically sick, so if I start angrily, violently coughing at any stage in the show, that's the reason why I'm not choking. I actually have an ailment.
You're a one-man COVID machine.
Yeah, I'm spreading not just Islam.
Depopulating the UK by giving people COVID.
That's the conspiracy, and who knows, maybe I'm feeding into it, not my fault. But yeah, just tell us about Five Pillars, where we're at the moment. Obviously, we've got a plan for 2024, have we?
Well, actually, that's all private and confidential, Robert. I'm not going to say that in front of the whole world. But yeah, it's like...
We have a plan?
We have a plan. I just don't know what it is
Allegedly, we have a plan.
Yeah, no, inshallah. We had a big 2023 and we just want to kind of consolidate our gains in 2024 as well as expand. But yeah, I think we're going to get our heads together. And I mean, if you guys, want to leave some suggestions in the comments in terms of what we can do better in 2024, what we can add to what we're doing now, because obviously we're doing news, we're doing podcasts, we're doing analysis. But if there's anything specific we should cover more, we're thinking maybe of doing more in the Arab world, Palestine in particular, and documentaries and just traveling more, I think, as well, doing more foreign assignments. These are some of the ideas that are milling about our heads. But if you have any concrete suggestions, please leave them in the comments.
Absolutely. Now, just to quickly talk about the latest, this morning there was escalation in the Red Sea. As of course we all know, the situation in occupied Palestine remains very dire. The attacks on Gaza remain ongoing. The threat of it expanding into a regional war as well remains. Basically, Yemeni forces conducted what's been described by the British authorities as one of the largest scale operations targeting shipping in the Red Sea. And that actually forced a response by British and American naval forces present in the area who are trying to combat this. So the threat of us going to war with Yemen is very high by the looks of it right now, because they've threatened the Houthi forces there, as well as continued skirmishes on the Lebanon border. Obviously, the death count in Gaza continues to climb. What do you think, Roshan? Is this going to get worse?
It's interesting, not just Yemen, but not just skirmishes in Lebanon. They're actually assassinating Hamas leaders in Beirut, aren't they?
Yes, you're right.
So it looks like the Israelis are itching for a bit of a fight to kind of maybe widen this war. I would think that would be a mistake on their part, but for some reason, I think they've got a crazy right-wing government there. They seem to be keen to widen this war. At the moment, Hezbollah is showing quite a lot of restraint. The Americans don't want this war to be widened, and I think Israel's main backers, especially America, even the British, they don't want a wider war. I think they just want Israel to deal with the Palestinians in Gaza, but not start going after Lebanon, etc. So interesting time. I think there is a lot of division, even within Israel, Israel's allies, about how the end of this war is going to look. I think Netanyahu, maybe to save himself from court cases and prosecution and losing his throne as prime minister, maybe wants to just continue this for a year at least. I think the Americans would like to see it over within a month or even less than that. So would the British. So let's see how it plays out. I think Hamas can fight for another year. I think their guerrilla warfare. I think Hezbollah don't want a wider scale war, nor do Iran. But if there is one, I think Israel are not going to destroy Hezbollah. It would be very painful for Israel if it'd be perhaps more painful for Lebanon. So I really don't know. I've given up predicting what's going to happen.
It's crazy how we here, like the UK, America, might be dragged into a full-blown regional war just to protect Israel, this colonialist project in Arab lands, from going under. They've gone full force into Gaza, failed their ultimate objective, which is to defeat Hamas. They're clearly not doing that, and they've gone all out here. The only thing they haven't done to Gaza, God bless them, is nuke them. Who knows if that's on the table? You can never tell.
If they nuke Gaza, they nuke themselves, because obviously the radiation will carry across the border.
I mean, it's a rogue regime. You don't know what they're going to do next. That's probably the only reason they haven't nuked them. But yeah, it looks like they want to drag us in to their war, basically. So yeah, let's see how that goes. But talking about this, one of the major developments that's happening right now, one of the most important stories probably that's going to be the case going forward, is South Africa is taking Israel to the International Criminal Court over war crimes, genocide, basically. That's a big story. Obviously, there's a lot of elements at play here. They're going, I think, this week to submit documents, which is basically applying to take them to court over this. And this document is about 80 pages, lists in hard facts everything that Israel's been doing in Gaza. I'll list a few examples. The scale of killing of innocent people, cruel treatment of civilians, including children, continued breaking of the promise of safety, something we're seeing all the time, attacks on the healthcare system, the siege of Gaza, including denying them food and water, and blatant expressions of genocidal intent by senior Israelis, which we've seen time and again since October the 7th and even before that, I dare say. So, yeah, Roshan, just tell us a little bit about why this is so important.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think anyone that's not blind can see that genocide is happening. So that's just a fact as far as I'm concerned. But whether the International Court deems it to be genocide, it's an important case because I think that obviously if Israel is deemed to be committing genocide, or there's a case for that, then it means that, well, first of all, it means that we can call people like Julia Hartley-Brewer and Piers Morgan genocide enablers, and we have a world court backing, a judgment to back that. So we can really go on the offensive against the Zionists. We can literally say, you are committing genocide, supporting genocide, and there's actually, a legal ruling backing up what we say. So I think that's significant. We literally go on the offensive if Israel is convicted of doing that. If they're not, I think what we should do is just literally demonize the court and, literally international justice, it's worth nothing. Yeah. Obviously, it's just an instrument of the strong to, oppress the weak, etc., etc. I personally don't think Israel will be found guilty of anything. I think you have to look at the court. I did some phone calls and talked to some experts, and they tell me that this court has 15 judges or something like that, and they all represent different nations, states. They're all kind of political appointees, and they're the ones that are going to vote on this. So I think South Africa doesn't have the numbers. I think the majority, like for example, the French judge is not going to go against French policy. Neither is the American. But there's a Lebanese judge there. There's a Somali judge. There's a German judge. I mean, the Germans would probably actually vote for a genocide if there was like a motion on the table. Should Israel massacre children in Gaza? The Germans would actually probably vote for that because they are Nazis. The Nazism in Germany has never gone away. Actually, they've just transferred it from Jews to Muslims now. So it's still the same kind of Nazi temperament from Germans.
Europeans do as Europeans do.
Yeah. So basically, what I think, we shouldn't get our hopes up too high, brothers and sisters, over this, because I think ultimately South Africa doesn't have the numbers. I think it's going to be a knife-edge vote, but I think they won't ultimately find against Israel, in which case we just demonize the court, and ultimately we need to stop relying on these international structures anyway. However, if the ruling goes into our favor, we make hay while the sun is shining.
It's not even demonizing the court. If they're not going to rule in favor of the oppressed here, as you say, with the avalanche of evidence that Israel is committing a genocide here in Gaza, then it's not even a proper court. It's like a Western institution to prop up the empire of the West on the rest of the world. So let's see how it goes. But we'll be monitoring this, I'm sure, as the story develops. The next story is talking about Israeli crimes against humanity. The Palestinian journalists that have been suffering and dying in significant numbers in Gaza, particularly the well-known, world-famous Palestinian journalist who works for Al Jazeera, Wael Al-Dahdouh, who basically has lost his entire family pretty much in Gaza, the latest being his 27-year-old eldest son, Hamza, who also worked as a journalist for Al Jazeera. He was killed while driving in South Gaza by an Israeli airstrike, along with another journalist who was killed, a freelance journalist who was killed in the car as well. I believe we actually have a clip of the aftermath of the strike, the father mourning for his deceased son. So a hard watch, Roshan. Just give us your reactions.
I think they're punishing him for being an outstanding journalist. I mean, he's become a symbol of Palestine now, and he's definitely the most outstanding journalist of this conflict. And I mean, I watch Al Jazeera Arabic quite a lot, and they've done an amazing job. Al Jazeera Arabic as a TV station, they have become the TV station of this Palestine conflict. And he is their star presenter, and Israel are punishing him for the effectiveness of his reporting, I think. Obviously, they've killed now, I think, 5 members of his immediate family, his wife, at least one of his daughters, I think 2 of his sons, a grandson.
Yes.
Yeah, and after, I mean, obviously, just losing one family member would crush most people, but he just goes on air and he continues to deliver his reporting with accuracy, with poise, with professionalism, and with compassion as well. And it's unbelievable, quite frankly. And I think, obviously, his last son, Hamza, who was a journalist himself, was killed in an airstrike on his car. So that's from a drone, I think. A drone literally attacked the car. So the Israelis are now saying that he was traveling with a terrorist. But I think that is very unlikely. I think they're just covering their backs as usual. I think this is a targeted assassination to punish Wael Al-Dahdouh for his outstanding reporting.
Well, I mean, if you ask Israel, they'll say any Palestinian is a terrorist. They'll probably say you and I are terrorists.
Yes.
Everyone's a terrorist to Israel. Everyone's an anti-Semite. Everyone's a terrorist. Yeah. They even called South Africa anti-Semitic for taking them to court for genocide. And for
they would kill you and me. They would kill you and me if we were in that arena. They would kill you and me without any hesitation whatsoever and justify it as well. And who knows? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Israelis start. They're killing people in Lebanon now and other areas outside their territory. So are they going to start killing people in London?
It's crazy. I mean, and let me just clarify that the family members of Wael who were killed initially in October. This includes his son, who was 15, his daughter, 7, his nephew, who was 1 year old, and his wife, of course. They were killed in a refugee camp in the south. So they fled their home to go to a safe area where they were then killed. His son was driving, his eldest son, Hamza, was killed while driving in an area of South Gaza, which is supposed to be a safe zone, basically. He was killed there. So this is, again, we're talking about blatant proof of murder. Yeah, absolutely.
Murder.
And this will be brought up in the criminal case that's been brought against Israel. But I mean, they're killing journalists left, right, and centre. They're killing
hardly
doctors,
any solidarity.
Ambulance workers. They're killing aid officials. They're killing members of the United Nations, by the way.
Yeah, they don't care.
And what's the United Nations doing about it? Absolutely nothing. This is we are literally seeing the most disgusting regime committing the most inhumane killings and crimes against humanity. And the West is still like, oh well, we're not sure if we shouldn't term it as a genocide. Maybe we should have some kind of temporary humanitarian pause and all that type of stuff. But again, Roshan, let's emphasize here before we move on. If it wasn't for these Palestinian journalists who are giving their lives for the work that they do, we wouldn't know what's happening because Israel stops international journalists going into Gaza, right?
Yeah, and not just Israel, Egypt as well. Basically, you can't get in there. Israel always say it's for their own safety. They can't guarantee the safety. But I think a lot of international journalists would actually take that chance, quite frankly, of their own accord. Because, the world doesn't really know what's happening. And unfortunately, because of the racism and the Islamophobia of the world, also, if you have a white face saying it, people will believe you more than if it's like a brown Arab saying it.
So yes, of course, Al-Dahdouh, you're an inspiration. You're literally the greatest journalist on the planet today. You've given your life for the Palestinian cause. Essentially, you've been shot at yourself and injured, and you've lost multiple direct family members. So our thoughts and prayers are with you, and whatever we can do for the Palestinian cause, we're doing it here. And of course, we pray for you every single day. It's been heartbreaking to see. Let's go to the next story, which is the Israeli ambassador to the UK, something we've spoken about already, Zippity Dippity to Zippy Hotveli, who's caused multiple waves of outrage simply by being what she is, which is a propagandist for the Israeli regime, flag waving for war. And in a recent LBC interview, she's been condemned for basically talking up genocide. Okay. I'll play out the clip now and we can react to it.
Things we exposed to the world after getting into the areas in Gaza that we try to find all those tunnels and the underground metro city that Hamas has built, thanks to this great support of Iran, Qatar, the international community generosity, everything turned to be this horrible terror city. One of the things we realized that every school, every mosque, every second house has and access to tunnel. So this is, and of course ammunition.
But that's an argument for destroying the whole of Gaza, every single building in it.
So do you have another solution how to destroy the underground tunnel city, that this is the place where the terrorists hide, where they have all their ammunition, and this is the rockets that are still fired on Israeli cities?
So basically, do you have another suggestion to genocide? And everyone's taken that for what it is, a defense of genocide, a support for the policy of genocide. Yeah, what's your reaction, Roshan?
Well, I mean, a key element of the rules of war, the internationally accepted rules of war, is proportionality. And obviously, what she's arguing
the
for...
proportionate response we've heard so much about from Israel.
Yeah, well, I mean, what she's basically arguing is that to destroy one Hamas tunnel, it's justified to just take out the whole of Gaza. So, I mean, it just speaks for itself. I mean, this woman, we did have a show on her a few weeks ago. I think we said it all then, but she's, in a way, I'm glad she's the UK ambassador, because she's the true face of Israel, you know, and even in Israel, she's considered an extremist, intimately involved with the settler movement to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque, for example. She's a complete liability, but you know, every time she opens her mouth, that is Israel.
The last time we spoke about her a few weeks back was because she was caught out by Sky News lying, making up information about, I think it was like a refugee safe zone that she claimed that Israel had set up with tents somewhere for refugees to settle in Gaza, and it was completely made up. Sky News went to that location. There was nothing there. It was just like a rubble heap where Israel bombed it. So she literally lies all the time. I mean, she just said here that every second home has a tunnel access or something like that. Do you believe that, Roshan?
She's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't she? Every interview is a car crash, and we can take a snippet out of every interview she does. No, of course not. It's just, I mean, I think Israel... I mean, it does have, unfortunately, it does have spies on the ground in Gaza, and that's why it can carry out some targeted strikes. But generally, they don't know what's going on. They're just fumbling their way through it, and they don't care. They're not only killing civilians, but they're enjoying it. They're having a party, having a massive party doing it.
Yes, and as a result of that interview, a petition was launched demanding that she be expelled from the UK. It's passed 100,000 signatures. I think it's on nearly 120,000 at the time of this recording, something like that.
We've shared it a few times, haven't we?
We have, as well as many other people, and recently a Labour MP, Zara Sultana, actually put that question to a government minister in Westminster. Let's play out a quick snippet to see that exchange where she basically called them out and said, are you going to expel this ambassador or not?
Mr. Speaker, last week when the Israeli ambassador was told she was making, and I quote, an argument for destroying the whole of Gaza, she replied, do you have another solution? Genocidal rhetoric like this has been echoed by a litany of Israeli officials and is matched by a murderous bombing campaign that has now killed more than 23,000 Palestinians, which is now why Israel faces the charge of genocide at the International Court of Justice. So will the minister expel the Israeli ambassador for her genocidal rhetoric? Will he support the case against Israel at the International Court of Justice? And will he end his government's complicity in this atrocity by banning arms sales to Israel and demanding an immediate ceasefire?
Well, as I think she will know, we are pressing for a sustainable ceasefire as well as humanitarian clauses.
So that was basically his response. He didn't actually respond directly to the call to expel the ambassador. He ignored that one. And in more of the same of talks of humanitarian pauses and all that type of
She won't be expelled, obviously. But
I must admit, I don't like the Labour Party at all. Zara Sultana represents them. That was a good question, I think.
She says some good stuff.
But yeah, I don't think we can let the Labour Party off with a pass here, because they've been doing just as much damage in this issue. In fact, their leader supports a siege on Gaza at one point. He literally supported the total blockade of Gaza. So yeah, let's not say that we're supporting Labour all of a sudden. Muslims continue to be angry at the party. There is someone else who has sparked a storm online, a journalist this time for Talk TV once again. I'm sorry, Roshan, I know you're sick and tired of talking about Talk TV, but a new offender has risen to the forefront. Julia Hartley-Brewer, who is a colleague of Piers Morgan, a right-wing loudmouth who has supported Israel in her position since October the 7th, and has been slamming and going after all the pro-Palestine guests, urging that they condemn Hamas and all that type of thing. But in a recent exchange she had with a Palestinian MP, he actually turned the tables, and she was the one that walked away badly from that interview. Let's play a snippet out now and see exactly how it went.
Think that Israel is a democratic country?
I know that Israel is a democracy. They have elections.
No. This man is now has 4 courts against him because of 4 cases of corruption. This man knows if the war stops...
We haven't got time to do the entire history of Benjamin Netanyahu, who is not a popular figure in Israel. I'm not here to defend Benjamin Netanyahu. Mustafa, is it possible to...
Whenever I speak...
Right. You talked about how you don't... I understand that. Please don't say that again. We don't have time for it. You've made that point 5 times already.
I don't know what you have time for.
Oh my God, for the love of God, let me finish the sentence, man. Maybe you're not used to women talking. I don't know.
Maybe you're not used to women talking. I don't know. That was one of the points that stood out. Basically, the guest, the Palestinian Mustafa, actually responded on Twitter and called her an arrogant and racist journalist. What was your reaction to the interview, Roshan?
I mean, she pulled out the feminist card right at the end, didn't she? For no reason whatsoever. I mean, if he'd said to her something like, "Oh, time of the month, is it?" Then, all right, you could accuse him of misogyny or whatever. But the only reason why, she's accused him of misogyny is because he's an Arab Muslim. So I think that reveals her own stereotypes. Otherwise, there was no reason. He didn't say anything, to justify that. I mean, obviously, it's the same old Talk TV stuff. They get a Muslim Arab guest on to hector them, to badger them, to interrupt them, to be rude to them, to have a fight with them, not let them answer. Same old from Talk TV.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, it's all about the fact that, like you say, she saw him as an Arab Muslim and just assumed he must hate women, or that he never hears women speak. Well, let me just tell you something, Julia. You clearly don't know the Arab women and what they have to put up with in occupied Palestine. You clearly don't even give a toss about investigating what Arab women have to put up with, Muslim women have to put up with day in and day out, seeing their children getting mutilated, destroyed by this horrific regime, which you actually support in much of your coverage. You don't hear their voices of resistance, quite frankly, against this horrific occupation of their land, the native women of that land. You won't platform them, and if you do, you'd probably just interrupt them and shout them down and accuse them of being something, I don't know, oppressed maybe, for wearing a hijab, for example. The fact of the matter is that Islam is empowering for women. Islam is the only thing, I would argue, that's really keeping the Palestinians going. If you see what journalists who are being slaughtered in Gaza are saying, they are praying to Allah to keep them going, to provide them the strength that they need to get through this test of endurance by this horrific genocidal regime that they're up against. If you even had you were clearly an ignorant bigot if you seriously think that Arab women, Muslim women, are oppressed and not given the space to speak. They are among the bravest women on this planet today. You're just an ignoramus, quite frankly. Roshan, is there anything you want to add?
No, I mean, obviously, I was invited onto a show.
Yes, absolutely. Before we move on, we've got to mention this. You were invited on the show. Yeah. Do you want to give your response?
Well, obviously, one of the researchers, called me up and WhatsApped me, actually. And my response, I don't know whether you want to read it out.
So basically, Roshan was invited on, and here is your response. Hello, Ted. Ted invited you on. No, to be honest, I've stopped doing Talk TV. Too many bad experiences of presenters not letting me speak, cutting me off, muting me, and generally asking stupid Islamophobic questions and then shouting over me. I also have no respect for Julia as a journalist, so it's a no. Feel free to pass that on.
Yeah, so I mean, the big temptation with Talk TV is to go on because they have a big audience. You'll get like hundreds of thousands of views, etc., etc. You kind of boost your own profile. So there is a bit. And you can boost Five Pillars profile as well to a certain extent as well. So there is a temptation to go on. I personally like a good debate. I think I'm quite good in debates. I'm not good at giving speeches, but I'm in a debate, a bit of argy-bargy. I kind of like that. So I would have fancied going on, but I made it clear now that I'm not going on Talk TV and feeding the beast.
I must admit,
but the thing is that I probably got more attention from that tweet, from that rejection, than I would if I'd actually gone on the show.
Yeah, there's appetite for a boycott of Talk TV. Actually, it was discussed recently at the time when everyone was going on, and Piers Morgan had a go at the Muslim guest recently. But I think that appetite still remains, although it's not actually been implemented. No one's following it right now. But you are the one principled man who has upheld your call to boycott Talk TV. So well done,
I can't now, really. I want to go on, actually, but
I'll never invite you on again. But let's just be clear.
No, I don't want to go on. I'll be honest. I don't want to go on, just because let's have some self-respect here.
Let's spit on Talk TV's invites.
But it is. I mean, the irony is that they are the only ones giving us a platform, and that's why we're only considering. But that's why we're considering them, because we can't get anyone else.
Is it a platform if they just bring you on to shout you down and say that you're an extremist, and they bring you on to kick you off?
It's a circus.
They bring you on to kick you off, don't they?
I mean, you don't even get the opportunity to make the points. So it's a circus.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think you described it as you were up for debate. Yeah. This wouldn't have been a debate. This would have been a shouting match.
Yeah, I'm up for a shouting match.
She has, but even then, a fair shouting match, right? We want to hear you shouting as well.
Yeah.
They just press the mute button.
Yeah, well, if you're in the studio, if I went on, I mean, I'm not going to, promise. this, but if I did, I would go into the studio. I wouldn't do it on Zoom because they can mute you on Zoom.
Yes.
In the office, if they try and kick me off, I'll say, call security.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't going nowhere.
Let's just stop seeing this as an invite to an interview where you'll get a fair shake or a debate, even a fair debate. It's just a propaganda outlet where they're just pushing pro-Israel talking points. And anytime a pro-Palestine guest comes on, all they do is just shout you down.
And
so
the Muslim shows are the most popular shows. And I think actually we're actually giving them our audience.
Yeah, we are. We're platforming them. Talk TV's benefiting from Muslims. So let's just cut them off, censor them.
If you look at their YouTube page...
Muslims Uncensored. Let's censor them. Censor everyone we don't like.
If you look at their YouTube page, I mean, normally they might get tens of thousands of views for like an ordinary interview. With the Muslims, it's like hundreds of thousands or millions. So we are literally giving them our audience.
100%. Yeah. I think if I went on, I'd do some mansplaining. I think that's what Julia needs. She needs a man to come on and explain the complexities of what's going on.
Doesn't mansplaining mean something different? I thought that's when you spread your legs like really wide. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, that's not what you meant.
No, that's not what I meant at all. Mansplaining.
Isn't that what it means?
No, that's where a man explains in a very patronising way, basically, to a woman what's going on.
Yeah,
she's a
You're going to put a woman in her place, like a good old Arab Muslim.
She has she has traditional values, right? So she needs a traditional man to come in and just explain what's right and wrong. Anyway, let's
tell her what's what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's go on to the final topic of the day very briefly. I think this was really important to discuss.
Yes.
Basically, a delegation from India visited Saudi Arabia recently, and the authorities there actually gave them a grand tour of the city Medina, where obviously our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his mosque is, and actually it was pictured and videoed the delegation visiting the outskirts of this holy mosque, and basically the delegation is headed by a Hindu politician from India, but not only that, she is part of the BJP ruling party, which is headed by Narendra Modi. Now, Narendra Modi is, of course, overseeing India at a time of immense persecution of its Muslim minority there, including anti-Muslim pogroms, violence, discrimination, you name it, it's happening. Roshan, just give me your reaction to the story, because it's caused quite a stir.
Yeah, so my headline was Mushrik in Medina, basically. And that's what it is. Obviously,
catchy headline.
Yeah, so she's a Hindutva. You know, she's obviously Modi is the godfather of Hindutva, and she's part of his regime. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. The Saudis have obviously had Zionists, hardcore Zionists, also visit Medina, and the environs of Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina in previous years. So it doesn't surprise me the way they're going. Obviously, they wanted to normalize with Israel before October the 7th. They have very good relations with Hindutva, Muslim persecuting Modi, India. So it doesn't surprise me that, but the goal is still a bit, I mean, the fiqh of this is interesting because I asked a few scholars about the fiqh of non-Muslims visiting Medina. Now, there's consensus amongst the scholars that no non-Muslim is allowed in Mecca. Medina, there is a difference of opinion. The majority view is that non-Muslims aren't allowed in Medina as well. Okay. And that has always been the traditional policy, even of the Saudi government, until recently. There is a minority view that non-Muslims can visit Medina, maybe not right inside the mosque, but in kind of the outskirts of the mosque, as long as it's for a limited period of time to conduct their business and then they leave. That's a minority view, and it seems as though the Saudis are going along with that view. So that's the religious cover that they use to justify. But, I mean, the symbolism isn't good, and it's obviously all about symbolism, and that is the Saudi Arabia has changed tack in the last few years. Not only is it, pro-Western, it's always been pro-Western, but it's also jettisoning its religious principles. We see that in a number of different policies the Saudi government is enacting. This whole cultural Westernization process. They're always politically pro-West, but they were culturally very conservative Islamic. That has changed under MBS, and it's just another sign of that.
I just think that, obviously there's the two issues here. An idol worshipper basically going to the holy city there, very close to the mosque, but also the fact that she's a politician in a government which is overseeing this extreme Hindutva purge of Muslims in India. I mean, what message is this sending to Indian Muslims? Too many times we hear complaints of people from that part of the world, the Indian subcontinent, Muslims, who go to perform Hajj, for example, and they get treated like second-class citizens, basically, because of where they're from. I've heard many complaints of them, being spoken to rudely and, mistreated and slapped about by Saudi security there because of where they're from. But then, you know, they roll out the
red carpet for this mushrik. Yeah,
Hindutva. So there we go. Is there anything else we want to end the show on, Roshan?
No, I've got nothing else to say whatsoever. So, kick me off the show.
I'll save my voice for the next episode of Muslims Uncensored, which will be returning to its usual routine of once a week. But for now, it's salam from us. But make sure you do like, share, and subscribe, and also leave your comments in the comment section below. We do read through them and react to the good ones, the ones that support us. We react to any negative ones, we ignore it. But we do appreciate your advice and feedback. And of course, keep sending in stories to 5 Pillars, because we routinely cover stories which you, the community, send us. You are our eyes and ears on the ground, of course, and we appreciate that as well as all your other support, inshallah. So thank you very much, guys, and until next episode, it's Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah khair for now.
Assalamu alaikum.